Welcome, 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 everyone, to Office Hours number 27. And today we are talking about the mental game of improving your mental game, or really the stages of mental game progress, which imply that there's a degree of understanding about your own mental game so that you can progress through those stages successfully, because there's a lot of mistakes that happen. There's a lot of setbacks that I think shouldn't happen, but do because you all are unprepared to deal with the realities of what this process looks like. So we're gonna get to it. We're gonna go deep, give you some good advice on how you can make sure that your progress does not get derailed. Tanya, good to see you. Appreciate you passing the word around and sharing it with some of your colleagues. Good Boyd, how are you? Wildcat Apollo, welcome to you. Today, for those of you who are new to Office Hours, right, this is a place for you to get your questions answered. So by all means, at any point today, you can post your questions in the chat and I will get to it. And for those that are returning, welcome again. And for all of you, please like, share, tweet, send out, let other people know, because you never know who in your group could use a little bit of advice around the mental game. We all are trying to make some progress, myself included. And sometimes it just takes a little bit to make a big difference, right? Sometimes the right advice, time can make a big difference. I will say, right, I am my first client, started this gig a long time ago, but I did it because I wanted to get better at golf. And last Monday, I had the big tournament, the one that I've been preparing for, really kind of had on the radar for 2 years when I started getting back into fitness and regaining mobility and trying to get my game back in shape, because the U.S. Mid-Am, which is 25 years and older, they get rid of all the college kids that don't have jobs, give us working stiffs a chance to play in a national championship. I qualified for this 10 years ago. And this year is being hosted at Sleepy Hollow Country Club in Westchester, New York. Close enough by where my folks could come by and eat and watch, easily. So long story short, I failed. I missed qualifying by 4 shots, or I missed a playoff by 4 shots, missed qualifying, easily by 5. And I'll be honest, and I tweeted about this earlier this week. I took for granted that I need to do as much work as I am asking all of you to do on your own mental game. I kind of in the back of my head had this illusion that I'm surrounded by it all day. Of course, I should be able to have the focus that I need to, the poise, the presence that I need to, kind of at all times. And early in the round, I did not, right? My decision-making was off. I made some kind of judgment errors that were more to do with just the speed with which I was making decisions. A little too quick. B, my process with my putting was a little bit off as well. Bottom line is I gave away a bunch of shots early, and by the 7th hole, 8th hole, when I corrected it, it was a little bit too late. Played well coming in, but shot 1 over, not awful. Finished 20th out of 140, like still decent, but my goal was not decent. My goal was to qualify and ultimately contend in that national championship. So the bottom line is it was a nice kick in the ass. The pain, I can talk about it now without, that kind of punch in the gut feeling. But it's motivating. I mean, I've already begun kind of planning for next year, and frankly, the next several years, because I've got bigger things that I want to accomplish. That this has kind of given me another taste that, yeah, I can still do this. I just got to put the effort and the time in. So anyway, bottom line is, and the reason I'm sharing all this is because, right, this takes work, and you can't just kind of show up here and expect, one tip is going to kind of solve things for you. Like I said, one thing, maybe the catalyst to help you to make some progress here. But, the bottom line is you got to put the work in, myself included. So if I'm going to hold you all accountable, I'm going to damn well hold myself accountable to that as well. Anyway, I see some questions rolling in here already. Let's see who else is in here. Tyson, welcome to you. I got a question from you as well as Mike. I'm going to get to those shortly. Martin from Providence, welcome to you. Moose, what's up? All right. And here's Pixel, and I see a few other questions in here. Why is golf a mental game as well? Could you explain? Look, everything is a mental game. I mean, you can't separate your mentality and your emotions from anything you do. So, some people like to say, well, golf's a mental game, trading is a mental game, poker's a mental game. I mean, they're all have some psychological influences, right? So why is golf a mental game? Because you can have low focus like I did, right? My intensity was low. In years past, it was anxiety and fear that caused me to underperform. But, there are lots of players who get angry, they lose confidence. They're trying to get in the zone. I mean, there's a lot of things regarding the mental game of golf that is very, very similar to poker, trading, etc. All right. Yeah. And Tyson, I agree with you here. Props to everyone here trying to improve. Let's get at it. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Arrow's got one. That's to somebody else here. All right. So today's topic. Let's get to today's topic, and then I'm going to get to the questions, some questions that were sent in advance, and get to some of the questions that you all have. Okay. So here we are today talking about the stages of progress, right? And it's in relation to this blog, which I posted earlier this year, and I put the link in the chat for those that have not seen it. All right, mental game of improving your mental game. And the bottom line is we're going to come to these stages of improvement. That's what we're going to focus on first. So here's my first question for you all. Okay. What mental game progress have you made? Now, if you're new, obviously don't answer this question. But if you have been working on mental game, right, what progress have you made? What progress can you distinctly comment on? How'd you do it? And, can you share any lessons, mistakes that you learned along the way? And I'll try to get to some of your comments as we go along here. The stages of progress, right? I want to describe the 4 kind of distinct stages, and there may be some, finer steps along the way that, we may be able to define. But the bottom line is there are 4 distinct stages to mental game progress. And the reason understanding these stages is so critical is because if you are making progress and don't realize it, then you will lose motivation. You'll get frustrated. You'll lose confidence. There's a whole host of mental and emotional issues that will happen because of your interpretation or lack thereof of your progress. So it's really important that you understand kind of where you are in the progression, because we want to make sure that your motivation is correct. We want to make sure that your frustration is correct. Because if you've been working really hard and not making progress, then that frustration needs to be turned more deeply into figuring out like why what you're doing is not working. But if you're, making progress, feeling like it's not good enough, feeling like it's not enough, or that you don't even see it, and you're getting frustrated and angry with yourself, you're going to slow up the progress. You're going to derail the thing that you're doing, and you might even change course. You might even change a strategy that's actually freaking working. Okay. So stage number 1, increased recognition. Okay. Which means that you can see your problem, more precisely in the moment. You can, at times, I don't know why my camera's out of focus. There we go. Or whatever. Just going to stick with the blurriness. Increased recognition. You can barely see me now because it's out of focus. Anyway, increased recognition is the first step. And that recognition is being able to see in real time, like the escalation of tilt, the escalation of FOMO, the triggers or the reactions that you're having, right? The increased recognition that your pattern has been triggered, right, has gotten stronger. That's a distinct stage of progress. Now, it is critical that you understand that there's a difference between that and the third stage, which is establishing command or control of that pattern, that problem in real time. Just because you can see it does not mean you can stop it. And that is by far one of the biggest mistakes people make. It's like, oh, I see what's happening now, and I expect that vision means control. Awareness, recognition does not equal control, does not equal command. Those are two different things. So if you make that mistake, you're going to, again, derail the process, because increased recognition is something. Before, many clients, right, many readers of the book, right, you couldn't see what was happening in real time. It's not until you went through the data collection process, the mapping process, profiling that pattern or that problem, before you actually could be able to see it occurring, see the emotion building, see the problem before you'd make a mistake. Now, doesn't mean you can always stop it from happening, but that ability to see what's occurring in real time is key. Then uncovering the root. Okay. Emotional problems, right? The emotion is not the problem. The root cause is the flaws, biases, wishes, illusions, hopes that are incompatible with reality and get triggered and spark greed, FOMO, fear, anger, mistake tilt, revenge trading, desperation, right? Those host of problems that we often see. So uncovering the root is a real massive accomplishment, because once you understand what's causing all that, now you have the opportunity to go to the next stage and establish command, right? Establish some emotional control, ideally correcting your emotions in real time, recovering in real time, and progressively getting to the point where, what may have taken you sometimes hours or days to emotionally recover, you can do within minutes or seconds. Okay. It takes work to get to that point. Okay. But that progressive kind of gaining on your ability to quickly recover and gain command or control is a massive accomplishment. And then the last stage here is resolution, where the problem is actually solved, right? You've gone through enough repetitions. You've instilled the correction deep enough that it actually upgrades your mentality. And so now what previously would have triggered you, right? Seeing other traders make money, seeing other poker players win tournaments, seeing golfers have success, right? Doesn't trigger any internal emotion. You can sort of deal with and accept those realities more easily. And that is where a lot of the implicit poise, patience, right? Confidence, stability really comes from, because you've actually healed and corrected those root problems. All right. Let me see if there's any corrections here or some stages of progress here. Richard's got documenting my emotions helped me recognize them sooner. Fantastic. Distinguishing intuition versus the impulse. Yep. Awesome. I see a question here. Tanya, much better with patience. Today I sat on my hands. I did not force a setup when my trading model did not occur. Did this through jotting feelings down and also talking my process out loud. Okay, so that suggests that the weakness may have been a bit more technical, that the impatience was a byproduct of your strategy or system not being as deeply internalized as it needed to be. If that's not the case, then it's possible that the jotting your feelings down, is like managing the problem. And so you need to go through that next step of getting to the root of your problem using the mental hand history to help you to do that. Let's see. Wildcat Apollo accepted the volatility and emotionally it touches me very seldom. Fantastic. Okay. Good stuff. So yeah, if there are any questions about the stages of mental game improvement, let me know. I'm happy to answer those. I see other questions that have been posted, and I'm going to get to a few of your questions because I have a feeling there's going to be too many before I can find my way back. But those that have posted questions in advance, do not worry. I will be getting to all of yours very shortly. Okay, so first question. In your experience with traders and poker players, what is the best way to fix results-oriented decision-making? What's the underlying flaw? There are a lot of flaws. I mean, I think the potential is quite varied, but what I would say is that one of the most basic and easiest fixes is that, like, without having an alternative to results, people just default to results being the form of feedback to understand how you're doing, how you're performing, and ultimately your skill and competency. Now, we know that that's not accurate, right? It's false feedback, right? Trading results in the short term, poker results in the short term cannot tell you how good of a player you are, how good of a trader you are. You need a more objective sort of third party tool, which is what I use is what's called an A to C game analysis, where you are firmly defining what your A game, B game, and C game look like. Some will include the zone. By doing that, you are able to independently, right, separate from results, determine how well you are performing. So we're not getting results as a form of measuring our performance. We're using your own freaking measuring stick. So on a day where you've lost money, but you know verifiably that you were in your A game, okay, then you have the ability to sort of sustain confidence and, again, be less results oriented because you've got this measure that is more objective, and conversely, like you actually made a bunch of money, but you were in your C game, you shouldn't feel as good, right? So often our emotions are directly tied to results when they really need to be tied to execution and performance. But in trading and poker, that's harder to define, harder to know, unless you spend the time working to create, an objective measure. And if you want to download the A to C game analysis, you can get that directly from my website, which I will show you here quickly. All right, so here's the website. Go to resources, click on worksheets, scroll down, and you'll see both the trading and poker A to C game analysis. All right, next question. Jared, you're working through an issue right now that I've dealt with for a while and can't seem to figure out the root cause or perhaps a good injecting logic statement. It's mainly jealousy with other traders when they do well, especially close friends, which I have helped mentor, which I know shouldn't be, and I should be happy and celebrate their successes. Yet tilt gets triggered, even though logically I know this has nothing to do with my performance. I've uncovered from the mental hand history that it's a number of reasons, which is over-competitiveness, luck versus skill, hope and wishing. I guess to add it to my question, it makes me question my own competence and trading strategy as well. It's a combination of things, and I guess that's the reason why it's so hard for me to resolve. Yeah, so what you need is individual injecting logic statements for each piece of that, or you need to write up like a larger injecting logic paragraph, one that you are studying and reviewing on a day-to-day basis, and then you kind of pull out, individual statements, phrases, even just words to help to kind of inject that logic when that trigger comes. But yeah, I mean, I think when you say that there's the over-competitiveness, luck versus skill. So the over-competitiveness may have its roots to childhood stuff, right? You might have been highly competitive from a young age, in which case maybe you hate to lose. And, sometimes we have these like remnants of like childlike thinking from how we would even like view competitiveness. And so you might have a little bit of that, right? The jealousy may be sparking some of those, feelings from when you were young. That might be just like one other angle to look at this, which I would classify as accumulated emotion. And you can use the mental hand history to try to get rid of the old emotion as well. All right, next question here. All right, so now we get back to Eric's going. John, I want to be rude, but I think the answer is pretty obvious. Try not to focus on others and just your own actions. The whole point, and actually the flaw I would say in your comment here, is try not to focus on others. I mean, we can try to do lots of things, but the default reaction is we automatically focus on them, and we have these reactions. So you're trying to force yourself to not focus on them while a part of you is focusing on them. That is why a lot of mental game strategies fail. And I think this is what makes my strategy, my system so successful, is because we don't try to do anything. We work systematically to undercut those reactions in the way that John was describing, so that you can deactivate the trigger and are no longer having this like internal battle that is ultimately going to have to be there long term. You're going to have to do this. I'm going to have to keep trying to not focus on others versus correcting the root flaw for why it is that I'm focusing on them And once I do that, over time, you establish command and you get a lot of repetition, you eventually reach resolution where this problem is gone. And now you can genuinely celebrate others' successes and maybe learn from them in a very pragmatic way so that it can help to make you better. All right. Next questions here. Okay, I've read the book like 5 times and I'm still struggling to apply it in practical terms. I assume you're talking about the trading book, since majority of you are traders in here these days. So let's just go through this quick guide. Again, this is also a document that you can download here. Where is it? There it is. Quick guide for the mental game of trading. Let me just share with you what this is. All right. So this is the quick guide to the mental game of trading. All right. So first step is to map your pattern, right? Which means doing a data collection worksheet and then eventually taking that data and turning it into a map, okay, or a profile. You'll see on the website, the worksheets are labeled as a profile, but it includes a map and other information that's critical to being able to make use of the material. Okay, so mapping your patterns is the first step, and that is what helps you to establish recognition, right, and achieve that level of mental game progress. Step 2, right, identify the root. The mental hand history is your tool for this. Okay, now the book was written, and the same is true with the mental game of poker. Chapters 5 through 8 in the mental game of poker, chapters 4 through 8 in the mental game of trading, right? They are written in a way to help you to actually complete the mental hand history. Okay, that is how you get to the root of the issue, right? That is the second step here. Step 3, develop a real-time strategy. This is how you establish command or control of your emotions in real time. Okay, and so from the mental hand history, you're going to create an injecting logic statement. You're going to establish a form of disruption. And when you recognize that your pattern has reached a certain level, you disrupt it, you inject logic, and you also add in a strategic reminder, which is an important piece of making sure that you're making better decisions. And then it's about rinsing and repeating. Okay, and it just takes a lot of repetition. The adaptation comes as you make progress and you start to see new problems emerge, which, commonly would be overconfidence being like a new problem, right? You made a lot of progress with fear and anger, and now all of a sudden overconfidence starts to creep in. So the adaptation is a necessity. The adaptation may come in too is you find new features of the flaw, right? Sometimes you might make some progress. The injecting logic is working, and then it sort of starts to tail off, and you have some sort of a setback, little step backwards. And there's just sort of new pieces of the puzzle that emerge through that setback. So you have to revise your strategic reminder, revise your injecting logic, even though the map may stay the same. And that's the process, man. So, if you're not applying it in practical terms, I think you just got to get off the pot and start doing something, whether it be data collection or mapping. That's the place to start. All right. Can you explain the importance of inchworm strategy and how traders are trying to move forward when they are essentially fully extended? It's hard to move forward when fully stretched out metaphor. Okay, so the inchworm analogy or the concept describes progress, right, is happening the same way that inchworms walk. So inchworms kind of move with this like stretching out, like they're not worms that like kind of crawl on the ground. They have this little hump. They got feet in the front, feet in the back, and they stretch out to move forward. And then they slinky that back end forward. But if your inchworm is stretched out really wide, right, your A game is here, your C game is here, right? How are you going to move forward, right? It kind of almost like a little commando style, trying to drag yourself forward. You have to work on your C game. That's the only thing you should be focused on. The mental hand history, right, is your tool to really uncover and extract what the heck is paralyzing that back end. Okay. And I would suggest that the way you've described this just gives me an inkling that perhaps confidence may be part of that, which would include perfectionism and high expectations. And maybe it's not exactly what you said that gave me that indication. It's just that problem in particular is so damn common. So get into chapter 7 and look more deeply in terms of the perfectionism section and see how much that resonates with you. Okay, what other questions do we have here? All right, you mentioned to me when I've exposed my problem of money management roller coaster, maybe you're not going to change. How does this apply to the stages? I'm not sure I understand your question, to be honest. Maybe you don't want to change. Okay, so if you're basically saying that you don't want to change, like if that's the bottom line, that there's a party that doesn't want to change, well, then you haven't even started the process. That's the thing that you have to, to look at more specifically. It's like, why do you not want to change? What are you fearing? What are you, is it a confidence thing? Like sometimes people are threatened by the idea that they're not perfect, or they're threatened by the idea that they don't know what they're going to turn into. And just the inherent uncertainty of it keeps them kind of paralyzed in where they are. Okay. Looks like another. Okay. This is an example of progress. I spend way too much time getting myself out of a jam than just making profit. Was down almost 2K today and traded my way out. Maybe you are actually, if this is happening too frequently, then maybe you've become dependent on being in a jam, being down money to spark that optimal level of trading and focus, which would imply that you don't have full control or command over your ability to do that. And you have kind of created this cycle of creating trouble to get yourself out, rather than understanding, like the reasons rather than defining how you can become in more command of your trading without being down like that. All right, this looks like when I started and completed reading the book in June, July, and started applying the concept, it was quite overwhelming, to be fair. You're not alone in that. So my initial reaction was frustration when I didn't see any progress instantly, which is an example of a flaw. Essentially took a summer break and have come back refreshed and realized that I need to keep repeating the process to reach resolution. Yeah, I mean, it's not just the process, but the specific corrections to your problem. That is what you are trying to repeat to reach resolution. All right. I think I've got a spot now where I can get to the questions that came in advance. And okay. First question comes from Eric. How do I stop procrastinating? I mean, I feel like asking a question as simple as that might even be a form of it, but we're not going to go there. How do you stop procrastinating? Kind of almost seems like there's a simple answer out there, but I would say the injecting logic that has helped a lot of people is there is no tomorrow, right? There really is only today. Today is your only opportunity to make progress. And you only need to do something different in order to begin to break out of that cycle. So, for example, if you're procrastinating, a lot of traders, poker players have difficulty like really doing a dedicated cool down post-session routine. So if that's something you end up procrastinating, well, do it for 5 minutes, do it for 3 minutes, do it for 1 minute, whatever you can do. Take action on it today, and then consistently at that level. And you create kind of a new data point. You create a new capacity that you can then start to scale up and build on. But the idea is that very often for procrastinators, they delay until there's so much work that they create this massive inspiration and kind of crank through all of it. And yeah, you're very productive for a short period of time, but you don't have that sustained productivity over a long period of time. So I think the easiest way to kind of start to crack out of this is to firmly understand that there is no tomorrow, and that the only opportunity is to start to scale up with whatever you can do progressively today. All right, this was a comment more than a question. I bought your book 2 years ago and found it very interesting, but my understanding was intellectual. Eventually, I had to recognize, mainly through painful experiences, that my mental game was weak. Went back to your material, and now it makes tons more sense to me. I had to take responsibility that I was looking for the magic wand. Sounds familiar. Not a lot of people. I mean, you're not alone in that. It's a very common phenomenon to kind of wish that mental game work was easier. And I think a lot of people in just by default think that way, because you know what's wrong. Just fix it. It should be easy, right? Why not? But it's not that simple, because you don't really understand what's happening. Now, simple mental game problems can be fixed very easily, but they're defined as complex when they repeat over and over again. And I would say, just as a simple guide, if you try to fix a problem and within 1 or 2 weeks you've made no progress, then the problem is more complex than you thought. Whatever your solutions were not sufficient. You do not understand the full scope of the problem to be able to then devise a strategy. Strategy has to fit with the problem. Otherwise, what are you doing? So the magic wand would be awesome to have. If I had it and I could sell it, I could promise you it would cost a lot, which is why my coaching and my books are, I think, reasonable. In which case, quick aside, the mental game of trading live is going to be updated and brought up to a new, not standard, but like, I was doing a beta test from May until June. Beta test was very successful. And so if you have read the book, and if you've, attempted maybe through your own efforts to make some progress, and you're stuck, or you just want more support, or you want somebody on your team who can help you, then that is what the Mental Game of Trading Live is all about. And I would suggest all of you go to my website. I'll post the link in the chat, and I'm going to be offering early registration for this program to those that sign up. Just all you gotta do is just add your name and email address right here. Click submit. Oh, I didn't share it. Sorry. Yeah, go to the website, put your name and email address in here, click submit, and you'll be on a notification list for early registration. Okay, the space will be limited. This is the beta test page is still here. This website is going to be updated with the full scope of what the offering is going to be like. But it's basically effectively like a more frequent office hours with very tailored personal advice, closed community, and access to a knowledge base with a ton of resources, including examples, worksheets, templates, etc., that you can be using to devise your own mental game strategy. So quick aside there, Mental Game of Trading Live is going to be updated and available for all of you in September. Okay, so next question. I find myself unable to forget a mistake or a missed trade entry. While it doesn't persist for more than a day, it continues to linger in my mind whenever I contemplate trading after market hours. Despite this, I believe it isn't impacting my preparation or execution the following day, and I don't experience any trouble sleeping. How can I overcome this issue? So, Samir, what you're basically saying is the issue is not that severe. And so, but you're unable to kind of forget about it. And the question is why. So you can, for sure do a mental hand history, right, on this exact problem, right? Why does it make sense that you are holding on to this mistake or this missed entry? We get to step 3 and like, what's the flaw? And for a lot of people here, it's going to be, there's some element of perfectionism. There's some element of expecting yourself to capitalize on every opportunity, expecting yourself to never make mistakes, right? Which could be under the guise of high expectations or perfectionism. But that would be my first guess as to what's going on here. Mental hand history, again, is your tool to really define it for yourself. Suppose I have an edge, but still keeping mental wounds from previous yearly losses. How can I pull the trigger again, Luke? So what you're dealing with is like accumulated emotion. The trading trauma would be a more severe example of this. You can also use the mental hand history as your tool. And I've said this a few times. So let me just show it for those of you who are unfamiliar with this document. Again, it's available for free on the website. It's not a complicated tool, but it is one that will be helpful in breaking down these kinds of problems. All right, so here's a mental hand history. All right, step number 1, describe the problem in detail. Step number 2, explain why it makes logical sense that you have this problem. So from a trading trauma accumulated emotion standpoint, we might just kind of adapt this question to say, why does it make logical sense that you are still holding on to this problem, or why you still think, feel, or react that way? Explain why that logic is flawed. Step 3, step 4, come up with a correction. Step 5, why is that correction correct? Which kind of just helps to more firmly root the correction in place. You know, imagine transplanting a tree. Here you have, you know, gotten rid of all these weeds, you know, cleaned up your backyard. It looks really nice. Stick a tree in the ground, stiff breeze, rainstorm, it falls over, right? So the step 5 is trying to kind of put some, you know, stakes in place to help to support that tree as it's getting stronger. And that's what step 5 is really there for, is extra strength and validity behind step number 4. So yeah, accumulated emotion, that is what you're trying to work through there, Luke. And it's not easy. I mean, it can be challenging, but the bottom line is, like, you want to get to the point where you're effectively like forgiving yourself for those past losses. But that forgiveness is not implicit, right? It should be coming on the byproduct of the lessons and learnings that you've derived from those losses and understanding what those lessons are. And maybe part of it is that you need to firmly understand that those losses are part of why you have an edge now, part of why you have the potential to be successful now. Were it not for that, well, you'd still be there and would then have those losses likely on the horizon, because you can't just magically create knowledge. We have to all learn through experience, as some have already expressed today, where they got overwhelmed, took a step back, and had some realizations. Well, if you didn't have that step back to have that realization and have a different perspective, right? Well, then how would you actually be able to do something different? Sometimes we need pain through loss, through mistakes, right? Through being overwhelmed in order to help us, you know, kind of wake up in a sense. If we know anger, tilt brings out our C game, do you recommend when we recognize this emotion to just walk away from our trading terminal immediately and continue to work on how to make this emotion come less often? Okay. Or do we attack the problem? For example, we take 2 trades and we lose and lose. We know that for a fact that the third loss has a good chance of making us chase. Should we try our best to avoid this third trade, Tyson? I know you're here, so if you have any additional comments you want to make on this, by all means. I would strongly suggest that you do both. Well, I mean, I guess you can't do both. So, yeah, I guess it is both, because you are trying to avoid this third trade, this third loss. Like, you should avoid it at all costs at this point, because the chasing is just going to repeat a pattern that you don't have control of yet. And so you don't need to learn anything more there. You need to really defend yourself against getting to that point and prevent it from occurring while working in the background to understand what is the emotion that's really driving this and begin to make some corrections, which you can do prior to that point. And then eventually, once you feel like you have a strategy that's working, then you can start to push yourself beyond that second loss and test yourself with some risk management. Can I take this third loss without chasing? And that becomes the test. You know, you could, I mean, yeah, I was going to say you could do it in a demo account, but that's not going to work. So bottom line is, yeah, you really need to, you know, walk away, but maybe it's not immediately. Maybe it's, you know, kind of after that second trade, or after that second loss, where the emotion is a bit higher, and you do a bunch of writing. I don't want you just to walk away and do nothing, right? That's unproductive. Walk away and then take a lot of data down, right? Data collection worksheets is a primary tool for that, right? Take a lot of the data down. What the hell are you experiencing? What's going through your mind? What's going on? What sparked it? What physical signs are there, right? What changes in your perception of the market, your positions, etc., are kind of in your mind. Get all that data out, because that's essential to being able to eventually help you to break down the problem using the mental hand history. All right. Last question that came in advance, and then I'll get to the others that are being posted by you all now. And Mike, I know you're here as well, so you can, by all means, post additional comments. After many straight losing days, do I keep my small win today and leave it as is, or do I press on for a bigger gain since the market looks like it's going my way? Similar kind of answer here, but maybe you're just a little bit farther along. If you have a strategy here that is going to correct the weakness in confidence, now I suspect that that's the case, okay? Whatever weakness is here emotionally, right? That's, affected you from those losing days. And that's why I said weakness in confidence, because I would imagine that losing days maybe has led you to feel a little bit worse about your strategy, about yourself, about your, competency as a trader. Whatever's gotten kind of knocked down, you're looking for a win to kind of start to boost you back up. It's only really going to be a temporary boost, because if you don't actually fix this pattern, you're just going to be in this exact same spot again. So you could book the win, get that little boost of confidence, but then use the whole situation to better understand what's going on, understand the problem. Why is your confidence affected by several straight days of losing? What is the root cause of that? Because that's going to help you to develop a better strategy, so you can not have to tinker with things as well, right? You're basically managing around the problem, and that's not a long-term strategy. All right, let's get to your questions and other comments here. All right, Leon, sign up to notify me. Sounds exactly what I was looking for. I group coaching, cannot afford paying $750 an hour. Yeah, it's actually $500 an hour. The first session $750, but yes, the group coaching thing is effectively, that's a fair way of describing it. It's not technically group coaching, because it's like individual coaching or feedback in a group setting, whatever we want to call that. And there's a lot of other benefits as well. But yes, I'm not going to publicize the cost yet, but I can promise you that it's cheaper than my hourly rate for sure. All right. Next question here. Rephrasing. I have a problem with money management. Okay, so it bothers me. Sometimes I have a lot. Sometimes I'm full of debt. You mentioned that it would be necessary to discover if I really want to change. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the problem could simply be skill-based, right? There may not be emotional issues at play here. The problem could just be you need more skill in terms of money management. Now, I would suspect that there's something emotional going on here. So, right, The Psychology of Money is a good book. I have not read it. I've gotten good feedback from others that it is, and it can help you to understand your relationship with money. So that's a book that can help you to be more inquisitive, that, again, you can use the mental hand history as a construct here to better understand what drives certain habits and behaviors, or even emotions, that are preventing you from adhering to money management systems or skills or knowledge that, either you have or are trying to acquire. So, I said, did you really want to change? Because I didn't fully understand your question before. But I imagine if you're here, that there's a party that wants to change. If that voice is not loud enough, then that is the problem to focus on first. If that voice is loud and you're just not sure what to do, then what I just mentioned is some steps you can take. Read all the comments, questions, and it looks to me that poker players like myself are way much less vulnerable than traders with mental issues. Nah. Yeah. I mean, maybe they're farther along within my purview because the mental game of trading came out 12 years ago. I've been working with poker players, for 15 years total. So like by default, like the average poker player may have just, certainly in my sphere, have been working on it longer. But I can promise you that poker players and traders, you got enough mental issues, and they're just as severe. I think some of the differences with trading is that for some of the very, very newest traders, right, there's this sort of blurry line between like an investment account, trading, swing trading, and I think sometimes you don't really realize that you're just like plop down some cash and you've entered the most competitive marketplace in the world, and you're just a little unprepared for that. Poker players, when you sit down to play poker, like, that you're there and that you're competing out of the gate. So some of the inherent kind of early problems, I think, are kind of taken care of just because the way the environment is. All right, Lee Trevino, love the name. I have a winning strategy, but I blow up funded accounts because I go on revenge tirade after not walking away for the day. Okay, so revenge trading is a combination of anger and confidence. Those are the emotions that kind of mix together to create that kind of revenge. So I would strongly suggest, right, that you do a data collection worksheet, really start to understand and map the early signs of this so you can, because the thing is, if you don't deal with the emotion until it gets big, right, it shuts down higher brain function. You lose control because that's just the way the brain's wired, right? Mental and emotional control is a mental function, but emotions have the power to shut it down. So you have to catch it early, catch that rise in emotion early. If you can't see it until it's already big, you don't really have any chance to consistently apply that winning strategy. So that's the mapping part of it, right? Data collection, then mapping, and then eventually use mental hand history and or the book to help you dissect and uncover the roots of this. All right. One second, I'm going to get to the next question. All right. All right. I've been on a losing streak for weeks. I had a small win today, and I took it. My confidence has been shit, and I needed to keep the win. Okay. So that's fine. You can do that to manage the situation. I have clients that do it. This is not a bad strategy, but I would not call it a solution to the hit that your confidence will continue to take in situations like this in the future. So if you want to be better in this spot in the future and plant the seeds of progress that could eventually be proven the next time you get in this situation, then really reflect on the last few weeks and understand what the heck is going on mentally and emotionally for you, right? Break it down, develop a strategy. Okay. All right. I've done the steps from your desperation chapter. All right. C game is better. So just for those that don't know, desperation to me is like that, like the very kind of fine line within trading and poker between a confidence or performance problem and a gambling problem, right? One that it gets very severe and really would require the help of a therapist, professional, right, that you're working with directly. So the fact that you've gotten some of your C game better, Karen, is awesome. So congrats to that. When I take trades that aren't 100% my rules, I panic that I'm going back to the old cycle. Any advice? So it just suggests that you're maybe just a little bit premature in taking those trades that aren't 100% your rules. And I think your panic is founded. I think it's okay to have that panic there. It's like your warning system that's telling you like, oh shit, like I don't want to go back to that hell, because we all know that, or those that have experienced desperation, like it's hell. It is awful, and no one wants to experience that because you just completely lose control. So the fact that you are following these steps and building some command and control here is awesome. I think it's just premature. I mean, if it's been a couple months, if it's been 3 to 6 months, you're kind of on the cusp here of just establishing enough of a track record and a foundation that's going to give you some stability to then begin to kind of expand beyond that and take some discretionary type trades. If you have any additional points on this, by all means. But I think right now, I'm actually kind of happy about the panic. I think it's keeping you sharp and like kind of on track. So well done. Keep it up. All right. What are some solutions you will be implementing to overcome the hardship you face in golf and come back even stronger? Great question. So number one, I'm going to be kind of creating a strategy for improving my focus. And that strategy is going to include, I've already kind of done it just because I am aware of it. I've thought about it. I just haven't written out the plan as detailed as I want, which is improving my focus day to day. So it's not like my focus is awful, but there are times where I can get distracted and I can find the amount of concentrated energy that I have to sustain focus long-term is just not as consistent as I want day to day. And then, right, the integration back to golf, it's not automatic, but it's certainly going to help. Then, right, there's the concerted effort when I go even play like casual rounds, not a competitive tournament round, where the people that I'm going to play with, I'm going to make it very, very clear to them that, right, my pre-shot routine is going to get a little bit tighter and stronger, and the process with which I'm making decisions might take a little bit longer than would be optimal for them. But my ability to move around the golf course should be faster because I'm hitting better shots and hopefully fewer shots. But I'm also going to give them free rein to have some chatter. I'm not asking them to shut up and let me have kind of my perfect bubble here, but to challenge it and to be, because there are times where on the first tee, if I do get in contention, if I am doing well, right, there's going to be other people, or there's going to be more distraction. So I'm not trying to create a bubble externally. I'm trying to create a bubble internally. The other thing is my strategy with regards to my practice, my like the skills that I'm working to establish just within my swing was not as efficient this year as I wanted to. And I know kind of where my deficits are, and we'll begin kind of like working on that over the next few months. Even for me, and being the off season, there's some smaller things that I can be doing in the short term. But like I said, for the most part, it was a focus issue. It's a decision-making and process issue, both of which are going to get, very well defined. And I'm going to practice a ton. And the goal is that I'll have that established by April, like before the tournament season even kind of gets going. So that, because like this year, I kind of waited a little bit too long. I waited to kind of make some of those improvements when the tournament season already kind of began. I think it kind of put me on the back foot. Like I want the season, which is roughly from like May through August, September for me. I want the season to be not about learning a ton of new stuff, but about like really implementing, about honing and refining and proving, what I've already established. Great question. All right. So a couple other questions here. I see some comments going back and forth. All right. We got a few minutes left here. Any other questions? I'll be happy to. See, Tanya's asking, do you have any protocols for improving focus, or can you suggest any books? I don't know if you can see it, but the yellow book right there is called Deep Work by Cal Newport. In my experience, he is the guy when it comes to focus. His stuff is hard. Okay. I would not take it lightly, but it's powerful for sure. The other thing that you can do, and something that I do, is I kind of set very defined periods for which I want optimal focus. And then I actually track every single distraction that occurs therein. And the tracking helps to refocus, A, gets it out of my head, B, and over time, it helps me to actually see progress, because when they are reducing in frequency, thumbs up. But also it helps me recognize fatigue, because when I find that they're kind of accelerating, even though I'm trying to improve my focus, that's an indication that I need a break. And that at least during my normal work day, like I have those opportunities. On the golf course, there's other ways to kind of take smaller breaks between shots and stuff. All right, Karen's back. Let's get some feedback here. So panic. It's the voice that says, I won't make it because of the past. So that's different. Okay. These thoughts say that there's a good reason I won't make it because of past. Another voice is saying my present strategy, mental game are way better, and I've learned from the past. I couldn't find the balance in between and couldn't find the root while doing mental history. So what this is probably coming from is just the experience, right, from that. And the desperation, right, is in the confidence chapter because there's a weakness in confidence. So I would argue that the part of you that you're trying to heal and fix, right, is kind of evident here. That this doubt or second guessing that you have of yourself, that this pattern probably isn't exclusive to trading and may have occurred elsewhere in your life, where you have doubts, and it very easily could be a byproduct of high expectations or perfectionism, where over time, the way that you were measured was very punitively, right? You weren't getting credit for things that you deserved and could really make progress on. But again, in the short term, I would keep at it with the mental history. It's okay to answer a couple questions or even just the first one, and then leave the second step open for weeks. I actually did that for golf for myself. I was finding myself becoming a bit too results oriented at one point, and I had some logic that just didn't really fit. So I just kind of kept that second step open of like, why does it make sense that right now I'm becoming more results oriented? And as it turns out, right, there was just a little bit of a feeling like I wasn't prepared enough, which, not shockingly, was ultimately the truth. So I was kind of looking for results to mask that problem, but it took me like 10 days to figure that out. Okay. So point is, right, you don't have to just sit down and complete all 5 steps in mental history, right? You can keep steps open for a longer period of time and then, see what you find. All right. Tanya, just read Deep Work. Great. All right. Well, then use it. I mean, sometimes people can just get into this sort of like consumption mode where you just kind of keep thinking that you just need to consume more and more, when sometimes you actually just have to take time to implement, because the things that Cal Newport's talking about could take you 9 months to implement effectively. I mean, maybe you do it faster, but it's not like a day. It's not a month. So, yeah, same with my book as well. All right. Got time for a couple more questions quickly. Quick question about an earlier question about the desperation chapter. Is this in the mental game of trading? I just checked the book and don't see the chapter. It's a section within the confidence chapter. It's in the mental game of poker as a form. It's called desperation tilt, but I talk about it, in connection to confidence in the mental game of poker. In the mental game of trading, I was just perfectly clear and blunt. Like, if you have desperation, it is a confidence problem. And so it's a section within the confidence chapter, which is chapter 7. Is it really possible to detach results to focus on the process? I would say it's more about firmly attaching yourself to the process, right? And remaining attached to results. I don't want you to be totally detached from results at any point. Results matter, but it's the process, it's the execution, it's our skill, it's our knowledge, our experience that produces the outcomes that we want. And especially as traders, poker players, right? That feedback, results-based, is like contaminated. It's not valid in telling us how we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So maintain an appropriate attachment to results and increase and elevate your attachment to process. Self-discipline is so important. I quit smoking, quit drinking. I exercise an hour almost every day, yet no discipline at trading. That suggests to me that you probably have a lot more emotion at play, that this is not a discipline issue within trading, but that trading is sparking a ton of emotion that is forcing you to violate your rules, which I say very clearly in the book. If you have greed, fear, anger, or a confidence issue, you do not have a discipline problem until you solve those problems. And then the discipline issue is, well, maybe I need to build some skill here and apply what I've done elsewhere in my life. All right, last question. How do I get in the sweet spot between overconfidence and underconfidence? Simple answer is you correct all the flaws that cause you to deviate from one way to the other, and automatically that will start to build more stable confidence, which to me is the optimal between those 2 points. All right, everybody. As I mentioned one last time, I thought I was sharing a screen here. All right. The mental game of trading live will be launched in September. So if you want to be notified of the next launch, put your name in that form there, and I will be sure to get it. I'm just trying to get this off the screen here. Next launch, right? As we've said, it's a bit of kind of group coaching, but it's like group individual coaching. There are going to be 2 tiers. One tier is going to be extremely limited in terms of the number of people that will be part of that. The other tier, have at it. But the bottom line is there's going to be a lot of resources to help you take your mental game to a next level. If you are a trader, this is a great way to kind of bring the book to life. All right. The next office hours, let's get this on here, is in September. And it's going to be on leveraging a setback. We've all had setbacks. Question is, how well have you been able to learn from them? How well have you been able to use them to upgrade and prevent future setbacks of that caliber and minimize the severity of them? So September 20th, it's a Wednesday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC. Let's talk about leveraging a setback. And until then, I wish you all well.